and I already done a couple of media interviews on it. Wanted to get on here and tell people about what our law enforcement officers are doing here in the great state of Arizona. As always, our office is always willing to help out as much as we can and be a part of the bigger movement. We were asked by some folks to give our phone number for the arrest hotline and help out answering calls. Also had one of our attorneys do initial appearance on Saturday. I took 4 of them this morning for people that were out there protesting, exercising their First Amendment right after the Roe v. Wade decision, right? That terrible, horrible decision. Again, just to start with that, I cannot imagine waking up one morning and my government telling me what I've always believed to be a fundamental right is no longer a fundamental right I have. It's mind-blowing, right? So I understand the outrage, understand why people are taking to the streets, and it's our constitutional right to do so. Now, law enforcement in Phoenix, you think they would have learned the lesson from the Black Lives Matter movement. You think they would be educated enough after all that happened there to no longer abuse their power. But they're not. They're literally not. So, I went to court this morning, represented 4 individuals, 4 people out there protesting. Guess what they were charged with, right? Arrested for and held in jail overnight. I'm just going to read straight from the paperwork I got at court. Failure to show ID, non-driver. Failure to show ID, non-driver. Now, let's pull up the statute, right? Pull up the statute here. Here we go. Not sure how good you can see that. All right, so it's not operating a motor vehicle. It's subsection C down here. A person other than the driver, right? Again, we're saying they weren't driving. Right, so we got this one right here. Who fails or refuses to provide evidence of the person's identity to a peace officer or duly authorized traffic person when such officer has reasonable cause to believe that the person who committed a violation of this title is guilty of a Class 2 misdemeanor. So we're going to focus in on the actual words of the actual statute. This is the charge, right? 28-1595C. Within that charge, the officer, in order to require you to provide proof of your identity, they have to have reasonable cause that you committed a violation of this title. We'll call it criminal statutes, right? So that becomes the issue. Was there reasonable cause to believe that a statute was violated that would have therefore required these individuals to reveal their identity to the peace officer? So let's be exact with our language here. If an officer just walks up to you while you're walking down the street, you have no duty to show them your ID. You have no duty to identify yourself. They will call that a consensual encounter. They can ask you, can I see your ID? If you reach into your wallet and show it to them, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no civil laws, no lawsuit, nothing. That's a consensual encounter, they will argue. If they order you to show them their ID, they must have reasonable cause to believe that you committed a violation of a crime. Reasonable cause. Right? Why do I keep stressing on this word? Here comes the ridiculous part, ladies and gentlemen. Guess what they said they had reasonable cause? On 6/26/2022, at approximately 23 hours, troopers monitoring the protest at the Arizona State Capitol via closed-circuit television surveillance cameras. Okay, a little nerve-wracking there. People out there expressing their First Amendment rights, and you're going to be on a closed-circuit television being monitored by troopers. Observed blank crossing 18th Avenue and Madison Avenue outside a marked crosswalk in violation of Arizona Revised Statute 28793A. Do I need to read that again? Observed crossing outside a marked crosswalk in violation of Arizona Vice Statute 28793A, what most people commonly refer to as jaywalking. So they had reasonable cause to believe someone was jaywalking, we'll call it, and therefore they were ordered to give their IDs. And again, it goes on to say, I'm reading from the probable cause statement here, what's called the Form 4. Blank was advised that the reason for contact, crossing outside of a crosswalk, ARS 28793A. Right? Wow. Wow. Lola, been doing amazing work all weekend. Hopefully got some rest at some point. Says these cops are desperate. They will do anything to silence their opponents. This is beyond petty. This is malicious. If I could heart that, if I could applaud it, if I could wholly endorse it by clicking on something, I would 100%. This is simply an effort by law enforcement to deter people from exercising their First Amendment right to protest. And even worse than anything I can imagine, we have officers misinterpreting statutes in order to simply arrest people. Ladies and gentlemen, they're trying to stop our First Amendment rights by essentially making shit up. That's my Stanford law degree. That's my teaching at ASU legal interpretation. This is what they're doing in the state of Arizona to try to stop protesting. We're just going to make something up because we don't like the fact that 4 young people would refuse to give all of their information to us. Oh, why is it such a big deal, Ray? Why are you getting so mad? Why are you so upset? What these officers are trying to do is intimidate people into giving their private information so then they can go search them on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, on all social media platforms to try to see what they're posting, what they're doing, to try to find evidence of what some people call an actual crime. They're violating people's privacy, ladies and gentlemen. What the freaking irony is this here? They're trying to force people to give over their private information so they can investigate and do their jobs. They're too lazy to do real police work. They're too lazy to do real law enforcement work and look to see when someone does something wrong. They want to gather everybody's social media information and go through combing their pages to try to find evidence against other people. That's what's happening here, folks. Plain and simple. All right? So let's get back to the statute. Why am I saying this? Why does it not make sense? ARS 28793. Now, in court today, the judge was going over C, 2893C. However, when you read the paperwork, twice in the probable cause statement, which is one paragraph, they don't reference C. They reference 28793A. So let's take a look at this statute. A pedestrian, right, crossing a roadway at any point other than within a marked crosswalk or within an unmarked crosswalk at an intersection shall yield the right of way to all vehicles on the roadway. Nothing in the probable cause statement had to do with them not yielding the right of way to all vehicles on the roadway. So they were interpreting the fact that they crossed at a point other than a marked crosswalk, right, as simply being the reason to go up and start asking someone for their identification. Now, the judge took it upon herself to look at C and said, between adjacent intersections in which traffic control signals are in operation, pedestrians shall not cross any place except at a marked crosswalk. And they didn't have any information in the probable cause statement, I'm sorry you can't see that one, about what the adjacent intersections look like, whether the traffic control signals were working, right? And I don't know, I wasn't out there last night, but that would be something that definitely, if the traffic control signals weren't in operation, or if they weren't even between the intersections, so the judge said no probable cause for that reason. Phil, it's a pattern of our law enforcement uses time and time again. I'm sick of being arrested, then released. Our names and pictures get blasted on the media. And non-friendly AZ, Ray, I hope someone does something about this. Phil has been arrested many times. Phil has been in a situation just like the 4 individuals I talked to just a few hours ago, so Phil can definitely speak from experience when he says these words. And it unbelievably traumatic. I witnessed, secondary PTSD from the 4 that were arrested last night, what they were expressing me today before court, the tears that I saw, the words that I heard, is disgusting. They go, oh, these 4 people arrested, no big deal. They did 1 night in jail. It is a traumatic, can be life-altering experience to be arrested by DPS, to be mocked, to be belittled, to be laughed at, and then to be taken to the county jail where you're further mocked at, humiliated, treated with utter disdain by the Maricopa County detention officers that we have there. It's a joke. It's a joke to everybody that they're protesting. It's a joke to them that they got arrested. I'm talking about law enforcement. So definitely something that we should all be in a rage about. We should all be upset about. We should all be more than concerned about, because law enforcement continues to look for a way to simply try to stop protest. And again, I'll go on record as saying 100% they are simply looking to use the law, use their resources, use their guns, use their handcuffs, use their closed-circuit television simply to stop people from protesting. And this is a prime example here. Right? Questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and please put them down. I just want to get on. A lot of people have been asking for what happened today and what's going on. And I just want to get on here and be able to clear it. Feel free to share with anybody that you think might be going out in the future. I think it's very important to have a good, solid understanding of the identification, right? Do you have reasonable cause to believe I committed a crime? Do you have reasonable cause to believe I committed a crime? Why do you need my ID, right? Why do I need to identify myself? Am I under arrest? Is always a good question to ask. Am I under arrest? Am I being detained? If not, I'm free to leave. And you can just go. If you're not being arrested, you're not being detained. And then as far as your ID, do you have a reasonable cause that I committed a violation of a crime? Right? Now, with that said, we know the difference between the law we teach in the classroom and the law as it gets enforced on the street. So simply, because you know the law better than law enforcement doesn't mean they still won't arrest you. But that's when it opens up the possibility to a lawsuit, which we can still have, hopefully even post, the attempt to do away with Bivens as well, as they're attempting to do away with other federal rights. But nonetheless, here, I think we still have a good case of being able, even under state law, to be combat officers for arresting someone without probable cause. Okay? So the case today was not dismissed. The case today was not thrown out. To be very clear about something. In today's hearing, for the purpose of initial appearance, there was found to be no probable cause. What does that mean? Why is it significant? What it means is, when you do an initial appearance, the first question the judge asked is, well, first they ask your name, date of birth, right? But the legal question that they ask is there probable cause for this charge? Why? Because if there's no probable cause, the statute, the rule says the person must be released immediately. Doesn't mean they get to walk out the courtroom with me, still got to be processed. But nonetheless, they're released immediately with no terms, no conditions. If there is probable cause for the charge, as stated in the probable cause statement, then the judge can go to the next step and say, okay, release conditions. They can still get released OR, own recognizance, which means you're just free to go out the door and show up at your next court hearing. You can have a bond put on you. It can be secured. It can be unsecured. You can have an ankle monitor ordered to be placed on you. You can be ordered to be overseen by pretrial services. All these different options the judge has if there is probable cause found. Now, no probable cause found, judge can't impose any of that and must be released immediately. So here we had a case where a judge, former prosecutor, county attorney, federal prosecutor saying there's no probable cause of these charges, therefore I'm going to immediately order all 4 of these people to be released. That's different from winning the case completely. No finding of probable cause just means at initial appearance means released immediately. However, the court hearing still gets scheduled out. Now, the county attorney's office can still choose to not file the case with the next court, for the misdemeanor court. Let me say that again. The county attorney can choose to not file the case and go on with it, or they can choose to file it and then get set for a trial. We go through all these arguments again in front of a judge, right? Dr. Maldonado says the same stuff they were doing in 2020, they're doing now. Find a way to intimidate people to stop demonstrating, stop them from fighting for their rights. They also drain community resources as orgs try to keep up in supporting folks. Police safeguards, white supremacy, everyone needs to care. Not just because of Roe v. Wade, because the same disgusting tactics black and brown communities dealing with for years. It's state repression, racism, state-sanctioned violence. We need to fight policing in all its forms. Abolition is the only way. Same police, same guns, same badges, same handcuffs, same BS, and they're still getting their same paychecks, only maybe a little bit bigger, right? City of Phoenix giving raise police officers. I'm not sure if DPS got any raises recently, but I'm sure if one gets it, the rest get to eat from the trough as well. So not surprising to see what law enforcement is up to in Arizona. It is saddening. It's really saddening to think, hey, something bad happened. We can get to the streets. We can protest. We can be upset about it. We can express our grievances to our government, and those with badges and guns will protect us. That's such a difficult concept to understand in this day and age, right? The fact that people, the state, should be protecting people's right to protest, not inhibiting it, detracting from it, arresting people for it. But that's where we're at right now in 2022, right? And Lola as well. It's important to be very critical of the narratives we are seeing about these protests. Some people have called these protests insurrection. Meanwhile, in rally, they're arresting people for not giving ID during a jaywalking stop. Right? That's what they asked me in the news right now. Well, the Republicans are saying it's insurrection. DPS is saying there's all this violence out there. Well, it's interesting because when you go into a court of law, when you have a judge there, you have to present evidence. The cases are being found to not have probable cause. So you're just making up BS, right? In a court of law, you need evidence, not rhetoric. And what they're spewing out is rhetoric with no foundation for it. So appreciate everybody that's calling it out. Much props and respect to Lola, Dr. Maldonado, everybody else that was on the phones all weekend. Hate calls came in, so all the people that had to listen to that BS, apologize for that, and thanks for the attorneys that stepped up. But as I told the four that I met with today, more than anything, thank you. Those that are out there in the streets, those that were out there getting tear gas, those that are out there protesting, letting the government know we're not just going to sit idly by and watch our rights get taken from us. So much respect to everybody who's been out there in the street. Much respect to the four that were in the jail overnight today. And they're traumatized. Again, it's hard. It's hard to look someone in the eye and see the agony and the fear. And literally someone saying, I'm afraid to go out in the street, just in the street, not even do a protest. I'm afraid to go out in the street based on what the government did to me last night. USA 2022. Any different from before? No. But coming to light again. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Just want to give up an update on what happened today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Feel free to forward to folks if they want to know more about their rights in vis-a-vis the police. And hope the week continues to get better for everybody. Thanks so much.